Do you think that it's racist to be proud of your race? Maybe also advocate for the preservation of one's own race, assuming, of course, there's no advocacy for violence or discriminatory policy.
Um, I mean, I'm gonna say probably not. I mean, it depends on how you define racism, but I mean, meaningfully, I would say probably not a bad thing. No.
Sure, I mean, I would say that the majority of people who are proud of their race have that position because of their cultures and ancestry associated with their identity. Would you disagree with that at all?
The majority might. I don't know. Some people can be quote unquote proud of their race, not from like a racial pride point of view, but from like an exclusionary point of view. It just depends on. I don't think I would generalize that statement.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not white, but I think if we're going to advocate for diversity and inclusion, we shouldn't have like any exceptions, weird exceptions, right? Like for example, we have a Latino and Black Pride Month. What do you think about like maybe a White Pride Month, right?
I think that generally when we think about Pride months in the United States, I think that the general feeling is that there are certain people that historically have been underrepresented in terms of like their contributions to the recognition of their contributions. So they've contributed more than they've been recognized for. So we have certain months to celebrate or commemorate these people because we feel like historically they haven't gotten that level of celebration or commemoration. So in that regard, I don't know why we would need a White Pride Month because I feel like in general we all know who like George Washington is and all the famous white figures in U.S. history. That's my feeling on it.
Sure. I mean, that's a pretty logical reason, actually. Some people would say, well, what about slavery? I mean, I think we can move on from slavery. It's been a while. But do you think that, like, black only spaces are a productive college campus policy? Or because people feel safer, quote unquote? Or is it, I mean, to me, it's just discrimination. It's literally racial discrimination.
Sure, I don't think discrimination is always bad. For instance, having a woman's only gym versus like a man's only gym. I don't think discrimination is necessarily bad all the time. It just depends on the purpose for the discrimination. If you talk about a black only space, I mean, it depends on the reason why the space was created and what the space is supposed to facilitate. Depending on the community that you're in, if you want to create a safe space for a certain group of people to be able to complain or vent about a particular thing without having to listen to other people complaining or judging your complaints, I guess, I think that safe spaces are fine. Obviously, I would say you should probably afford the same things for every type of person. So if you've got like a black safe space and you want to make like an Irish safe space or a white safe space or some bullshit like that, I guess you can do that as well. But I don't think that safe spaces or exclusionary spaces are necessarily bad things. It would depend on the purpose and application of the space.
Based, all right. And I think that the majority of people self-segregate anyways, right? Like even babies as young as 6 months old can negatively and positively react to the differences in race. And that's according to like the NIH.
They might, but also children at very young ages that are socialized around other races will engage in that segregation far differently. People that are like children that are brought up around people that look differently than them will have warmer feelings towards those people than people that have never been introduced to them at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I mean, I think if you disagree with me at all, it's for the right reasons. I've just heard a lot of retarded arguments on here. That's a bit of.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Thanks.
retarded arguments, but I mean, I would say that more often than not, when people talk about any of the things you brought up, and they talk about like creating spaces for white people, et cetera, I don't believe that. I don't usually believe those arguments. They kind of sound like super sussy to me, especially if you're talking about like white culture. Even the term white is like a little bit strange. If somebody wanted to celebrate more specific aspects of their heritage or culture, and they want to talk about like Italian backgrounds or Irish backgrounds or something like that, I would probably believe those a little bit more. But I feel more often than not when people talk about like white backgrounds or just white spaces, usually they just want to exclude certain types of people from it, and they don't really want to celebrate any particular culture of their own, and they usually don't even understand their own culture. So I don't know. That's just how I feel.
Whoa, wait. Why that presumption specifically about whites and not blacks, for example, or any other race?
Because historically, whites creating spaces and whites saying things like white power have a particular connotation, and you don't really see that same connotation historically with black people trying to create spaces or speaking about black power.
Sure, but like, I mean, I don't think that white supremacy is a big issue in America, right? Like, what do we have, like five Klansmen left?
I don't think that white supremacy as it stands today is a huge issue in the United States, but I think that we still feel the effects of white supremacy today in the United States, and historically there's still associations with it, and the need for like white representative spaces seems strange when white people seem to be fine in terms of representation in the United States, in economics and in government and whatever else. So the idea of like the necessity to create those spaces is a little bit suspect to me.
Well, I would say that even as a racial minority myself, it's very important to note that a lot of whites are under fire, right? Like white liberals feel genuinely attacked for even just being white. Some of them talk about not wanting to reproduce because they have some white guilt. I mean, what do you think about that? If you do acknowledge it as an issue, right?
I mean, I can acknowledge that there might be a perception there. I don't think that it's I don't think that that perception very accurately maps onto reality. The same that when black people say that we live in a hardcore white supremacist society and everybody's a white supremacist, I don't think that that maps on cleanly to reality either. So if you're white and you don't want to have a kid because you feel like you're under attack for being white, I think you are probably living too much on Twitter and need to spend a little bit more time in the real world.
Yeah, that's true. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Bye.